Waycross presents an election forum for Issue 16, a proposed fire and EMS tax levy for the village of Greenhills. When voters go to the polls on November 5th, they will be asked to approve the following issue. Issue 16, an additional tax for the benefit of the village of Greenhills for the purpose of providing fire protection and emergency medical services that the county auditor estimates will collect $442,000 annually at a rate not exceeding 4.9 mils for each $1 of taxable value, which amounts to $172 for each $100,000 of the county auditor's appraised value for a continuing period of time commencing in 2024, first due in the calendar year 2025.
Good evening. This is the election forum on Waycross Community Media. I'm your host, Kurt Radel, Government Programming Coordinator of Waycross Community Media. Voting is Tuesday, November 5th. Early voting starts October 8th. The last day to register or update your name or address is October 7th. To get full details, you can go to votehamiltoncountyohio.gov. That's votehamiltoncountyohio.gov. If you're watching this program live tonight, October 2nd, local residents are invited to submit your own questions to the candidates, which can be emailed to live@waycross.org. That's live@waycross.org. Questions must be phrased for all candidates to respond. Email questions must include the resident's name, address, and community. Details will not be shared on the air. I'll only read the first name and the street. For example, our question is for Mary on Waycross Road. To see this broadcast and other election forums, and for more information, you can go to waycross.tv. Tonight, we have two panel members here to speak on the levy. We have the Village of Greenhills Councilman Jeff Holder and Fire Chief Tony Spaeth. And we begin with Councilman with your opening statement.
Thank you very much. I'm Safety Committee Chair and just really grateful to Waycross and this opportunity to discuss this very important issue. I will give you a little bit of background that when we started to entertain the idea of a levy, there was a thorough discussion about how we should approach this. And where we ended up, which I was very appreciative, is that we hired an outside, nonpartisan party to evaluate this. We went down a path for a while as a council, discussed it quite thoroughly. There's a lot of history. We have tremendous, rich history with our fire department, a lot of emotions, but we also have to balance that with the practicality of making a good decision for our residents. So we're real grateful that we found Kramer and Associates, very professional, experienced individual, unbiased individual and group that reviewed this. I think it was one of the best decisions we made after we went back and forth and tried to understand how we can best serve the residents. But for the most part, I will turn it over to our chief, who knows more about the history than anybody. Maybe except Aki.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you. Since 1938, Greenhills, the village of Greenhills has been served by the Greenhills Volunteer Fire Department Incorporated. I think it's important to note that we are a private corporation. There are many advantages to that. One being is that the members of the fire department are not employees of the village, and there's some cost savings there. We have been proud to serve in a volunteer capacity for that entire time. Unfortunately, we've come to a point where the volunteer system is no longer sustainable. We are surrounded by paid career departments or a combination of career and part-time departments. And when you couple that with the amount of training that it takes to provide EMS and fire service, and then the monthly commitment of time that our members have to spend training, answering alarms, it just becomes impractical. And we are the very last true volunteer fire department in Hamilton County. And quite honestly, we have times we are not staffed and unable to answer alarms, and that's alarming. And so we need to be able to compete. And so as proud as we are to be volunteers, we've waited probably a little longer than we should have to look at serving and converting to a part-time system, and that's what we're working on. We're hoping that the residents agree with us and see the value in that, and understand and know that we haven't gone to the voters for 16 years, since 2008, and so it's very important that we pass this levy.
Councilman, what are the nuts and bolts of this levy that you're asking the voters to consider?
As far as nuts and bolts, meaning what's the cost to the residents? So, for example, we have, actually, you're better off to answer that if you would, Chief.
Yeah, sure. So it's a 4.9 mil levy. That will generate about $442,000 a year. That will cost the resident of a home that's has a value of $100,000, $172 a year, which breaks down to 47 cents a day. So if it's a $200,000 house, it would be doubled at $344 a year, or 94 cents a day. This is a bare bones amount to allow us to hire part-time people to put in the firehouse at our most busiest times. And then we will continue to supplement with volunteers. It will generate, like I said, $442,000, and we will continue to utilize the 2.5 mil levy that was passed 16 years ago to fund the operation, fuel for the trucks, uniforms, gear, insurance, all of those things that go along with running the fire department. We believe that amount will allow us to offer a competitive rate, and it's going to give us the opportunity to compete, because right now we have nothing to compete with our neighbors. Even the closest volunteer fire departments pay by the run. We don't even do that.
You talked about critical times. What are the critical times that seem to be bearing out?
Yeah, so anywhere from 6 in the morning until 10 p.m. at night, so about 16 hours a day, we would be looking at staffing the fire department with 3 personnel, part-time, firefighter, EMTs, and or firefighter paramedics, or a combination of that. And then at night, from 10 p.m. until 6 a.m., we would continue to schedule and staff volunteers, when volunteers are traditionally more available at night, and they would make a per run stipend. And so we're not quite as busy overnight as we are during the day.
What are the current services that are provided by this all-volunteer fire department?
Thank you. Firefighting, fire prevention, EMS. We respond to EMS and fire calls within the village. We have CPR programs. We do public education in all the schools every year. October is fire prevention month, so we have a slate of scheduled activities throughout the month. We do car seat installations. We have a lot of PR and community involvement, a lot of events in the town. The Easter egg hunt, for example, the fire department sponsors and puts that on. We go out on Halloween on the 31st of every year in October, and we hand out candy. Our first priority is making sure that everything's safe. Candy is the secondary, thing that we do along with that. So we have and then we also do fire inspections as well.
Go right ahead, Mr. Councilman.
One thing I did want to mention is when we first initially looked at this, and also when we had the first draft of the proposal from the consultant, we were looking at up to 6.5 mil. I felt we arrived at a very a good figure as far as millage goes, because it afforded us the ability to stretch, to see what we could get for a less amount, especially given so much everybody's under pressure financially, and prices in most places are going up. But originally we were looking, and the consultant had recommended a higher amount millage. I felt that it was important to realize, that the community to realize that there's nobody here that's getting exactly what they want 100%. And I think it's a good experience to go through this and find a millage that made sense for us.
Chief, you mentioned what services you have currently. If the levy should pass, are you simply maintaining those services, or would you be adding to those services?
I'll answer that by saying we're going to improve a couple of things. Number one, for many years, we provided what they call a BLS ambulance service, which is basic life support. And then we received paramedic support or advanced life support from our neighboring communities, specifically, most of the time, the city of Forest Park. Over the last couple of years, what we've done is we have established ourselves as an advanced life support provider, which means that we have received and worked to get authorization through the Academy of Medicine, our medical director. We purchased a LifePak heart monitor, which is a $36,000 piece of equipment. And we basically did all of the legwork and the homework up front. And so now what we need is paramedics. And so when we hire paramedics, we will be able to instantly provide additional shifts where we have paramedics on duty. Number one, we will be able to provide an outstanding response time. We have looked at the maps, and part of the consultant's job was to take a look at that. And when we have 3 members in our firehouse, we can get anywhere in the village within 4 minutes. Currently, our average response time is 8 minutes because we have volunteers responding from home. It's also important to note that mutual aid is also 8 minutes away. And so we'll be able to have paramedic support. We'll cut our response times in half. And that's a huge offering that we'll be able to give the citizens of the village, when not minutes, but seconds count.
Councilman, if the levy should fail, what would the impact be?
Well, we have to go back and work with what we have. We're required to have fire protection, and it makes sense. I think that's, we all know that's a given. Compromises would have to be made. As far as the details of that, the chief can cover off on that. The big thing, too, is that it's one thing, I had heard earlier, that fire runs in some townships are down, and there's no doubt that every minute counts no matter what the emergency. But having the EMTs there, and if you are suffering from a stroke or whatever, minutes, seconds count. And so if that fails, we want to offer the best service we can, but we'll have to work with very limited resources given what we're up against.
Chief, on terms of the equipment, how old is the equipment that you're working with?
Believe it or not, we are in pretty good shape on equipment. I put together personally about 25 years ago basically an equipment replacement plan that we've been working off of for that many years. And so what we've been able to do is pay off a piece of equipment, buy another one, pay off of a piece of equipment, buy another one. And we have been fortunate enough not to have to wait. And when you combine that with, we make 700 runs a year. And so we don't beat up our equipment. I say that with a lot of respect, but we don't beat up our equipment because it's not on the road putting hundreds and hundreds of miles of miles on the equipment every day. And so, a fire truck in the village of Greenhills will easily last 25 years, where in a neighboring community where they're making 10 times as many runs, they just don't last as long. And so the other thing that we really benefited from was in 2017, we bought a new engine, and that engine was about $485,000. That's in 2017. Today, that very same engine is almost $900,000. And so we have great apparatus, we have great equipment, but all of that means nothing if there aren't people to use it to respond. And so I think that's the important takeaway here. And we will continue on that succession plan so that when it's time to replace the next piece of apparatus, the engine will be paid off, and then we'll have things in place that we'll look at to replace it. But as far as equipment, we're in good shape.
Yes, if I could add, one of our first questions was capital expenditure. It's something that we've benefited from a volunteer fire department. We know that significantly. Also, being a small community, and we're trying to watch how we spend our money, and a surprise is a big deal to us compared to some other areas that have the cushion. So that being said, I think we've worked really, really well together. As far as the volunteer fire department, looking at the needs, seeing how we can stretch equipment and get the most out of it, but still be functional. So having that whole history is very, very helpful. So if this passes, hopefully it will pass, we're positioned well from a capital expenditure standpoint.
It is now time to get your closing statements. First, Mr. Councilman.
Yes, I think the one thing, I think I would be amiss to not acknowledge that people are under financial pressure. And we're hesitant to reach out and ask in any scenario for more money, more taxes. And something I think of fire is almost like insurance in a sense that people really, it's one of those necessary things. You wish you didn't have to be concerned with it. It's one of those things, too, that you think, well, right now I'm not having an issue, but with a community that has a number of elderly residents, but also our younger residents can call and have used our services as well, multiple times. So I think it's important to realize, one, we don't ask for money from a levy in this situation lightly, and know that people are up against a lot financially. But this is a very, very important issue and levy to pass for us as a community. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. The Village of Greenhills, by and large, loves the fire department, and the fire department loves the village. It's a very unique place. We've been able to provide our service in a very unique way for many, many years. I think it's important for citizens and voters to know that, we're not supported by the general fund. And so the current $2.5 million levy that we have now generates about $120,000 a year. That's not very much when you consider that our insurance is $12,000 a year. We spend $8,000 to $10,000 a year on fuel, and our uniforms, our bunker gear has doubled in price in the last 5 years. And so that money only goes so far. And people might say, well, why don't they buy one less dump truck to remove snow? Or that's not how it works, because the village is also on a very tight budget as well. And so this levy will be for fire and EMS service only. That money cannot be used for anything else. And I, for one, am excited about the future. If we can pass this levy and have paid people in the firehouse, cut those response times in half, gives us a chance to basically maintain a fire department. If this levy doesn't pass, we'll probably have to come back and ask again. And I'm sad to say that, the future of the fire department could be in jeopardy. And people might say, well, let's just go contract with a neighboring community. Well, we've looked into that. It's very expensive, and you lose identity, you lose control. And so when you're contracting with someone else, the price is going to go up, and they're coming from a farther distance, and it's just not a quality of life issue that our citizens deserve. And so as Jeff, Councilman Halter, very eloquently pointed out, we wanted more. But we made a compromise, and we have a strong desire and faith that this is going to work. This will give us the competitiveness that we need to hire people. I've lost several members over the last many years, and they say, Chief, I'm sorry, I'd love to stay here. I love Greenhills, but I have to go to another community where they're paying. I've had several of those people say, hey, if you start paying, I'll come back. And so, it's just that special. I also tell you that during the storms last Friday, I had 8 people that spent from 2 o'clock until midnight out on the trucks responding to all of the weather-related incidents that we had as volunteers. And so, those volunteers deserve to have partners and be able to be at the firehouse when we can be in service.
We thank both of you for being with us this evening. To see this broadcast or other election forums, you can go to waycross.tv. Voting is Tuesday, November 5th. Early voting starts on October 8th. The last day to register or update your name and address is October 7th. To get more details, go to votehamiltoncountyohio.gov. You see it on the screen, votehamiltoncountyohio.gov. I'm Kurt Radel of Waycross Community Media. Thank you for watching, and good evening.
Waycross takes no positions on candidates or issues. We conduct these forums so that our viewers may be better informed voters for the November 5th election.